YouTube, our weekly tier list is here, and it is top tier. What is up? It's your boy, Sean Matrai, here with another tier list update. So, if you had missed before, we were making a tier list. We make a tier list every week. We just went over the Mizar one. Now we're up to our tier list for the week. This is our updated post-ban list Mizar tier list. And with that being said, let's take a look at the meta. Alright, first is, now some of these are repeated, so forgive me, this is going to be Earth Machine. Earth Machine slots back into the rogue category, kind of like Fritz. I don't believe it's still meta because I think it struggles against Shiranui. I think Shiranui gives it a problem. So I think I'm going to put it in the rogue category. I don't think it has the most... I think it has a better matchup against Tachyon now. I don't think the Tachyon matchup is as bad. But I think due to the poor matchup I think it has against Shira, I'm going to list it in the rogue category for now. I don't think it's still... I still don't think it's top tier, but I think it's like a really good rogue deck. So I'm going to put it in the rogue strategy right now. Mainly because it struggles to out Sun Saga with Citadel. I think that's where it is. And again, like I said, I put things in the rogue category for decks that are really struggle to out a tier 1 deck. So like if a deck really struggles to out a tier 1 deck, it's probably going to stay in the rogue strategy. Tier 3 decks are decks that can beat the meta decks but aren't as consistent at doing it, or just aren't consistent. Tier 2 is the decks that are almost as good as the tier 1 decks but have a little issue with them, and tier 1 are the best decks. Cog memes are decks that really just, you know, I mean, are like on this rare chance it can beat it, on this very offbeat chance maybe we can beat things, and then Sewage Waste is, alright, this deck is absolute garbage. Alright, so next we have Mayakashi, and that is a tier 3 deck. I think Maya can start slotting back into the meta because I think it can match up. It's a little bit weaker against Shira, but it's not impossible to win because I think like you can win with the Maya Link negating Sun Saga and also grinding them out with cards like Winter and just using floats until you find your win con. I still think overall Maya is weaker than Shira, but they can run a lot of techs in the deck that can kind of help them out, and everything is kind of a 1-card combo as well. So I think that 1 or 2 card combo at max. So with that being said, I think Mayakashi is still really, really strong. They can also out Sun Saga with Mayhem if Sun Saga is the lowest attack monster on the field. So keep that in mind as well. But overall, I think Mayakashi is a really solid deck. There were some who did top in the KC Cup. Overall, I think it's a really solid tier 3 contender, yeah. Really, really solid. It actually could do solid. I think it does better now in Tachyon. Tachyon was its biggest issue because an Omni Negate plus an IDP was pretty much over for this deck, but they're not going to see it as consistently now, and they can get through a Book of Moon, I feel, relatively easily. So yeah, Maya's a high tier 3 deck. Alright, next we're going to put up Suship, and Suship is a cog meme. This deck is not meta. I don't think it has a consistent strategy either to be a rogue deck. I know Darkland was doing really well with it in like playoffs. I know they bought it. I know there were some people who do believe in this deck, but the problem with Suship, in my opinion, I know there's like hybrids with Gearfried that could kind of work, but it's not consistent in what it does, and because it's not consistent at all in what it does, kind of becomes a high-end cog meme. Now, it's very coggable, that's for sure. Is it like, can it beat some of these meta decks? Yeah, maybe on the right day at the right time. But other than that, I just don't think it's like a relevant meta strategy. You could agree to disagree if you want to. Now, these are 2 images for different decks, but I think I have better images as we go along for them. Shiranui, this is a tier 1 deck. I think it's the best deck in the meta right now. Right up there with Tachyon. It's so very strong, and it's really good at what it does. I think in a side deck format, Shiranui is a bit weaker than Tachyon because Tachyon can side deck in Crow and some other things that can give Shiranui a hard time. But I think, like I said, a really good Shiranui pilot can make it the best deck easily. Like, if you're a really good Shiranui pilot and you just know the lines in and out and how to break boards and whatever not, then this deck is a lot stronger. And I honestly feel, even in a decent pilot's hands, it's still a tier 1 deck. So regardless, I think that this deck is still really, really good. Obviously, like, alone, like, I know Solitaire got hit to 3, and I know people are going to say, yeah, but Solitaire and Spirit Master got hit. Took out Econ and Minecon. Doesn't matter. If Tachyon got weaker, it doesn't really matter. Because the only limit 3s really apply to them really being important is that the only reason why those limit 3s were important was to counter Tachyon. And that's the reality. Other than that, like, you could just play so many other techs in the deck just to beat the mirror. Like, Gold Sark is good against the mirror. Crow is really strong against the mirror. You know, Skullmeister is still really strong against the mirror. Herald of the Abyss is still really strong. There's a ton of different techs that you could just play overall that could just help with that de facto. You could even play Valor if you wanted to as well. So, like, yeah, there's just so many techs that they could just play that it's irrelevant at this point. You know what I mean? So I think at that level, I think that, you know, Shiranui is still the best deck, and I don't think the ban list hit them at all. Next is Tachyon, and this is like a 1A, 1B type scenario. Tachyon is still a tier 1 deck, but it's a lot less oppressive, because they can't go, or it's still not optimized yet. Now, could this go up in the tier list? It can, if people figure out different ways to play the deck, post-ban list. I think that this can, go up on the tier list for sure. I know some people have opted to, go with the Coach King play. So, because of that, you know, people might still make the Coach play anyway, but they don't have the Omni Negate, which I think overall is really important. By them not having the Omni Negate, it makes it a little bit less consistent for them to end on multiple disruptions. So, by doing so, it takes a little bit less in the power jump for me. So, it comes down from tier 0 to a good tier 1. But I still think it sits behind Shira. I think Shira is overall more consistent in what it does. So because of that, I'm going to put Shira out ahead of it. Although in a side deck format, you could swap these. Like in the side deck format, you could do Tachyon as tier 1. Just because of the side deck and the options that they have. But overall, I think that Shira is the best deck. Alright, next is Constellar. And Constellar is a tier... I want to say low tier 3. Maybe high end Rogue. Probably a low tier 3 deck. I think that it still struggles in the Tachyon because the deck can literally die to 1 disruption. Give it if you don't draw the right hand at the right time. And also because I think that Tachyon, I think that Shira going second into any of these metas is going to be rough for them. They can run a ton of hand traps and sidewall against Shira. That's one thing that they can do. But the issue is, if Shira goes first and they set up their board and you don't draw the tech, it's going to be rough for Constellar, I'm not going to lie. Given that the deck will just die to 1 disruption, they'll have 2 pops, and then Constellar will pretty much lose on the spot. And Shira's grind game is also really, really strong. Like, their follow-up is very, very strong. That Constellar is not really going to be grinding through that follow-up. So, the idea behind Shira is you got to kill them fast, and if you can't kill them fast, it's going to be a rough go of it. Also, cards like Gold Sark also help Shira deal with like cards like Palladius, even if Constellar were to go turn 1. And they could tech at things like Valor to even help that matchup if they wanted to as well. Even Crow is somewhat decent against them, but they could side in like Droplet to stop Dweller as well. There's so many things, like, that's like in side deck format. But like best of 1, it's kind of iffy up in the air. And, like, I think that it becomes a coin flip for Constellar because if you go second into Shira, it's kind of rough. And also, if you go second into Tachyon, it's kind of rough. So, because of that, yeah, it has viable strategies to beat the meta. But I just don't think consistent enough going first and going second. I'm going to leave it as tier 3 for now. Alright, next we have Tenyi. And Tenyi is a high tier 3 deck. I don't think there really is a tier 2. I'm going to kind of cook this. I think that Tenyi is honestly a really, really good deck in the meta against everything. Going second, it can be anything. Going first against Tachyon, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. Honestly. Shira, it's up in the air. Shira's a bit up in the air because, like, if you go second into Shira and they just have everything, you're going to probably lose. And it's kind of hand dependent. But overall, going second, you should be winning a lot of your games. But, I think I'm going to actually slot it a bit behind my Akashi now that I think about it. Overall, you should be going second. You should be winning most of your games. It's just that going first into, like, Tachyon is going to be still tough, because they still don't lose any of their turn 2 crown this, which was the problem for Tenyi. And then going first against Shira is a little bit dicey, because it may not be good enough. Your board, and they might be able to play through it. Like, cards like Gold Sark, again, can hit the Draco Berserker, and then they might be able to free reign, make their plays, and then it could start to get dicey. So I feel like Tenyi needs to feel well at that point, or they need to have the text in the deck to stop Shiranui, like Crow and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a little bit dicey, but I think overall it's still a really good solid tier 3 contender in the meta. Next is Twin, and I feel like Twin is the best out of the tier 3 bunch. Twin is very, very strong, because they can run text like Gnomes, IDP, and a bunch of other things that could slow a lot of these meta decks down. Again, it's still a coin flip going into Shira and Tachyon unless you have the right hand. Again, it could be a blowout. If you draw like a twin and like triple back row, wing second, then it's kind of a problem. Then you don't really have a plan to deal with Shira. You need to have a go second build, I feel, if you want to contend in the meta. Otherwise, Shira is going to overpower you entirely. And they still can. Even if you draw like one tech to go second, if they get at any point that Sun Saga effect off, or they crow you or something in the right time, it's going to be tough. And you're not going to be able to OTK Shira as quickly as you want to. Although, like I said, going first, this deck is still incredibly strong. And having like Gnomes and IDP is just ridiculously powerful for them. So I think that Twin is still a very good tier 3 contender. On top of that, I am going to add in the next deck. The next deck is Abyss Actor, and unfortunately, this is Sewage Waste. I'm sorry to all my Abyss Actor fans, but this deck is not good. It's a deck that has the Sealed Tombs or bust. That's pretty much what the deck goes down to, is its turn 1 play. You can make Nightmare in like the right conditions, but the problem is that if the minute you activate Madonna, you are locked. But it's completely unreliable. I don't even think it's a cog meme at this point. I think it's kind of like, Sealed Tombs or bust for them. That's pretty much what the deck comes down to. All right, Altergeist is a high-end rogue deck, almost tier 3. Altergeist has a really good Tachyon matchup, but has a really good bad Shira matchup. And remember what I said before, that if one deck struggles into one of these decks, we have to consider putting it in Rogue, like heavily struggles. But I think it heavily struggles into Shira, which is why I kind of put it at the highest Rogue category, although it can still compete with Tachyon, which has led to solid results in the KC Cup for a few Altergeist players, which is why I have it in Rogue. And yeah, it's just really, really good. Crimson Reaper is one of the best pilots I know on the deck. Luke Tyler is really good. Giorgio, they do amazing on it. Alsune. So really, really good pilots on Altergeist. So ask them if you don't have any questions on the deck. But I think it's like a high-end rogue deck. Alright, Pure Amazement is Sewage Waste. Yes, this deck is supreme Sewage Waste. It's not even Sewage Waste. This is like the garbage behind Sewage Waste. Because this deck does not do a lot. I mean, Arlequino is like a worse multi-faker in some ways, and in some ways it's better. Like, it's nice that it can pop cards in the field, but you have to get to that point. The problem is that for it to set a trap out of the deck, your opponent has to do something after Arlequino hits the field. Like, multi-faker gives you value immediately. This thing does not. That's kind of the problem. And the problem is the traps that this deck generally sets outside of the horror house that allows you to book aren't good. Like, there is the go-kart one, but I forget its name, but it's not really that great because it's highly situational. It might be better now. Let me look it up really quick. Go into here, the trap, that change, I think it changes levels, which might be better now. Here it is, Rapid Racing. Yeah, so, like, this could increase the level by 1, so I guess, like, you might be able to best Tachyon with this. But if they have Spiral Dragon, yeah, so I guess this could kind of be like a mini Mischief of the Domes in some ways, but like a really bad Mischief of the Domes. because they just end up generally, oop, I lost the tier list, playing around you anyway. So, yeah, and that's, like, highly situational to the point if you get that off, if you don't, and then, I feel like there's a lot more bad that this can come of good. I won't say Supreme Sewage Waste, but it is kind of Sewage Waste. There is some cool hybrids that you can do with this deck, like, you could use this with, so I won't say Supreme, but I'll say Sewage Waste, but there are some cool hybrids that you could do with this deck. You could use this with, like, Gearfried, and then it's actually goes up to like a Cog Meme or a Rogue deck, Amazement Gearfried, which is actually a decent thing, but pure alone, yeah, it's not it. Not it, kids. Ancient Warrior is tier 3. Ancient Warrior, not tier 3, it is Rogue. Sorry. Ancient Warrior is actually a solid deck. In the right pilot's hands, it's a Rogue deck. In a bad pilot's hands, this is a Cog Meme. And the right pilot's hands, this is a Rogue deck. Because Ancient Warrior is actually can do decently going second. I forget the name of the one that protects them from targeting, but you can protect your Sun Mo, and your Zhong Wang is actually decent. Like, you could have a decent turn 1, right? That could end on, like, Zhong Wang plus, bounce and a spell trap negate with your Zhong Kong. So, like, there is some nice things you could do with Ancient Warrior. I think, like I said, this is a bottom-end Rogue deck. I don't think it's, like, at the top end of the Rogues, but, you know, it's a bottom-end Rogue deck. The problem is, like, again, going second is hand-dependent, I feel. But there are ways that this deck could go second, and it could be nice. So I will keep it at a Rogue deck for that. Burning Abyss is a it's like, I would say it's a Rogue deck. Yeah. Like, Burning Abyss could be a bottom-end Rogue deck in this meta. Actually, it could actually be even higher, because Tachyon got hit. So I think I'm a little bit even harsh on the BAs. I think I'm going to put it as, even though nobody is playing it right now, I think it could be a top-end Rogue deck, because the thing with BA is now Tachyon isn't as consistent. Unless they start going full Coach King, then it might be a problem for BA again, because they're going to still draw into their... The problem with BA, oddly enough, isn't really the Omni Negate. The problem for BA is more in the case of them dealing with the book. Like, if they're not going the Coach King line, this deck is higher, because I think it can outgrind Shira, and I think you, in some cases, maybe. And I think that BA goes first, it can outgrind anything. I can tell you that right off the bat. If BA goes second, it has a chance to win against these decks. It has a chance. And I think that's the important thing. And that's why it can be classified as a Rogue deck right there with ahead of Ancient Warrior, I feel. And then obviously having access to Gnomes shuts down Tachyon going second. So I think overall, I wouldn't be surprised if BA did well. So I put BA in the high-end Rogue category right now. So yeah, put it right here. Next we have Boulder Rock Zombie, and this is a Cog Meme. I'm sorry, it is... I don't even think this is a Rogue deck. I think it's a decent deck. Like I said, Cog Memes aren't the worst decks. I wouldn't be shocked if people took them into a station. This is not the Destiny version. This is pure Boulder Rock Zombie. Okay? This is actually a decent Cog Meme deck. I think that, like I said, it's not ass. It's actually really good once you get it off and you have a great matchup against Shira once you do get this off. The problem is that you could die to one tag. You could die to a Crow. You could die to a Book if you're going second. That's kind of the problem. Going second is kind of rough. That's kind of the problem. And because of that, it kind of slots into the Cog Meme for me. Like, it has a really high upside, but a really low downside. I'm interested to see what the new skill for the zombies do for them, and I want to see how that kind of fits in with everything, but yeah. Alright, BLS, BLS hybrids and Evil Eye are Cog Memes. Oh, I forgot to put Evil Eye on this list, but Evil Eye also kind of fits into this. So BLS and BLS Evil Eye and Evil Eye are all Cog Memes. Evil Eye is not top tier at the moment. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not, because going second is completely unreliable. You need to draw a tech in order to win. The minute they disrupt your main starter, it kind of goes downhill from there, because you really don't have a play to go result to. You just gotta kind of hope you draw into extension or some like turn 2 card that outs things. I'm not saying that this can't win a tournament. It can, like if the stars align correctly, if you draw it consistently drawing your turn 2 cards. but I wouldn't count on that as being reliable, kind of like where Balderrock is, if you don't get countered or whatever. But I think overall, it's like a cog meme deck at this point. BLS and BLS Evil. BLS is a cog meme in itself because it's just not, it's not good. I was talking about Evil Eye there, but BLS is like, you know, BLS Evil Eye hybrid is better, but BLS overall is just like, yeah, it's not meta either. But it's all three of those decks kind of sit in the cog meme scenario for me now. Although if Evil Eye gets some more of their support via their links or Unleashed, then they could become meta. Like, if they get Unleashed, Evil Eye will shit up into meta. I guarantee it. It'll at least be a tier 3 deck. It'll be very, very strong. Or beyond that. We'll have to see when they get in the future. Alright, next is, excuse me, Successor Soul Blue Eyes. And this, I honestly feel... I want to say it can be top tier, but it's like, it's so close. I would say the highest end of Rogue. I don't know if it would be fair for me to put it in top tier. But it's like, it's almost there, honestly. And it's been, yeah, I'll put it at the back end of tier 3. This deck is actually has a really, really good turn 1. In turn 2, it can do some things. It could even, like, Successor Soul threaten the Link for Shira. Like, you do have some turn 2 application here. I think, and my boy JVZ, who just won with Blue Eyes the tournament, I think that this could actually be at the back end of tier 3. Some people were playing it in stage 2 last KC Cup, but I think it'll get more of a broad range of play now. It's very close to that high Rogue or back end of tier 3, but I'm going to give it a bump up of here. And I'm going to put it at the back end of tier 3 because I think that, you know, the turn 1 is really strong and the turn 2 can be kind of strong as well. So because of that and the ability to, like, there's even a chinky play that they can make in some of this thinking spellcast that can attack 4500 direct if they play Magical Ice Fusion. But overall, like, this is actually a solid deck. Like, it's either high in Rogue or tier 3. I can't decide. Alright, Crusadia Mech Knight is like, I would say it's a Rogue deck. I would say it's a Rogue deck, kind of like back-end Rogue. It's not a cog meme, but this deck, again, really needs to, like, going second, you need to draw the going second cards, but if you do, like, you can OTK. Like, if you draw, like, a Doggeron or some Kaiju and then have the perfect going second hand, then you are going to OTK. Power is really strong. I think that this deck could sit in the back of, like, Rogue, but I don't think it's as strong as some of the top tier, better contenders here. I think the better contenders are kind of more reliable than this is. Maybe it sits ahead of Ancient Warrior. I don't know. But somewhere in here. Yeah. Okay. Next is DDD. DDD is, it's a cog meme. Yeah. I think with Thomas the 2, it's a cog meme. I think it's better now. I think it's better. I think it's grown out from the sewage waste department. I don't think it's Rogue. I don't think it's meta, but I think it's a cog meme. Overall, DDD can still make Coach King turn 1, draw in the back row, which is still solid, like I said. But it takes a lot more resources than Tachyon to do. But its turn 2 is very strong going into High King Genghis and then summoning Ragnarok. Using Ding, get rid of back row, blah, blah, blah. You get and getting rid of banishing monsters. So overall, like I said, cog meme, not in the garbage department. Alright. Next is Dystopia. D-Hero is a Rogue deck, and it's probably out ahead of here. I would say right here. I'd probably put Earth Machine out ahead of it, honestly, but it's somewhere in this mix. Definitely like one of the top 3, maybe here. D-Hero could, again, make Gnomes turn 1, but it's also really, really strong for Balderrock plays. I think the Balderrock version of D-Hero is a lot stronger. Probably, if you're playing Balderrock D-Hero, you're probably down here, but if you're playing traditional D-Hero, you're probably up here. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit unnecessary. Maybe a slight tick below if you're playing the Balderrock version, but overall, still a really good Rogue deck, I feel, because, again, like, the turn 1 with Gnomes in this meta is still really good because it counts the top tier decks. But again, going second into the top tier decks, that's where it gets dicey. That's why it's still a Rogue deck and not meta. But yeah. Alright, Galaxy Eyes. Galaxy Eyes, again, I think is a decent Rogue deck. Like, this deck can create a really strong turn 1. Like, I'm not going to kid you. Get that on like 3 to 4 disruptions. Again, going second is kind of hand specific, but actually it realistically could be like up here, like if the stars aligned it to be. But I don't think it would be fair for me to put it ahead of D Hero because it's like lacking that representation. Yeah, so probably down here for now. But it's still a really strong road deck, honestly. Really strong road deck, honestly, right now. It could surprise a lot of people. Yeah, it sits in the road deck. Like you could end on like Soul Flare plus Spellgrave. The problem is like when your opponent summons a bunch of 3,000 bodies and they just don't care. So it's kind of like weaker in the Successor Soul your turn 1 and into Tachyon, unless you start running like Dragulubon. But like I think their turn 1's weaker into Tachyon and weaker into Successor Soul Blue Eyes, which kind of keeps it down here a bit. But yeah, definitely down here. Overall, it's still like if they draw their back row, then they're better against Tachyon and Successor Soul. But that's kind of like you have to hope to draw the back row, right? But then if you have like 3 trade, maybe you won't. But somewhere in the high row category for sure. Like it's actually pretty decent. Okay, next we have Cosmo, and Cosmo is a cog meme. It is what it is. It's not good. It's not really good in the current meta at all, and it's not there yet. You're not in the sewage waste just yet. You haven't gotten there, but boy, oh boy, is it ever a cog meme. It's a deck that will get you cog, but it will not do you much else in this meta, I feel. Like, it has a decent matchup in the Live Twin. You can do decently in the Maya. Tenyi is okay. Like, these 4 decks, it'll do decently into the tier 3 decks, but overall, once you start getting the tier 1 decks, it just doesn't compete, unfortunately. Not consistently, anyway. Alright, Meteorology is, ooh, they just got, Sistart. Does that change anything for them? Maybe it makes their turn 1 slightly better, but not a ton. I might regret this, but I'm putting it at the highest end of sewage waste. I know Safety is going to kill me for this, but in my opinion, this deck is not consistently good. It's just not consistently good. Again, turn 2 is still, you need to draw the text again. Like, if you're not drawing the turn 2 text, it's like, you know, it's dicey, but they're like a sack deck, so they're probably going to draw into some text. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, yeah, you have a turn 1 against Shira. Maybe this is a bit mean. Like, I would say a cog meme, probably up there, a Cosmo. Yeah. I mean, this deck could still work under the right conditions. Like, you could activate the, turn 1, you could shuffle Spectral Sword back in the deck. So, yeah, you might have a turn 1 play against Shira. Yeah, maybe that's a bit mean. I think that this is a cog meme deck. I don't think it's reliable enough to go in the rogue to do what it needs to do on turn 2, but turn 1, you could actually go Teacher, put Spectral Sword back in the deck, and you might be cooking, honestly, against Shiranui at that point. So, yeah, cog meme at this point, but still, you know, lacks in comparison to Shira. It's, you know, if you get Veil or Crow, well, good luck. I with you. You still can get rid of Spectral at that point, even if you get Veil or Crow, but then you lose your whole line of play, and then you're kind of sitting on Teacher Pass, which is not terrible against Shira, I guess, because then, like, you can defend against some things, like Gold Sword. Interesting. Interesting cog meme right now. I would say cog. I don't think the going second is very reliable, but we'll see. You know, maybe Meteorology could do something. Maybe even this is too low. I don't know. We'll have to see. I can see a world. The problem is going second at Tachyon would also be bad, because if you get Omni, then you're kind of like, you know, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe with the right text. Maybe with the right text, it could actually even go up here. Maybe I was just even too mean. Maybe it just goes up here. Oh, Suship should be much higher. This is like, yeah, more like this. Okay. You want to do this as well. Yeah. Probably fine. Okay. Well, if we're counting Evil Eye, then Evil Eye should be ahead. Probably. Yeah. Okay. Alright. Magic Key. Magic Key is... It's a cog meme because it's not consistent at what it does, but it's still relatively strong. Like, the turn 1 is really, really good, but it's not consistent going second. That's the problem. Like, overall, this has the power of being a really good rogue deck, but the problem is going second gets dicey, and sometimes you will lose to an Omni Negate. It's very hand dependent, and that's why it's a cog meme for now. Like, you could end on, like, Draco Berserker, Transfula Mind, plus unlocking turn 1, which is really strong. But the problem is going second, and you open up Manju, and Manju has to be the starter, and then you don't have anything else to extend with. That's the problem. So it's kind of unreliable going second, so that's why it's here. Mech Knight. Post-ban list, it actually is a rogue deck. I don't think it's as strong as the top 2 decks. I don't. And in the hands where you only open up Blue Sky and you get negated as the Omni Negate, then you're kind of screwed. Like, if they negate you at the right time, you could be screwed over. Because of that, I feel Mech Knight is a rogue deck. Yeah, I don't think it's top tier, but like I said, it's a rogue deck. It's definitely a rogue deck, in my opinion. On Eyes is Sewage Waste. We're gonna say it as it is. I don't even think it's a cog meme at this point. I don't think anything it does turn 1 or 2 is reliable. I know people are gonna say, yeah, I can make Dweller and Molo against Shira. Yeah, great. You go super minus, and if they have anything to stop you, if they have any way to grind through it, or they open up a trap that they could grind past you on turn 3, you're probably dead once they clear the Dweller. So, you know, I don't know. But, like, that's, at that point, like, we're just, like, hoping, right? And we're going way minus, and there are decks that can make better turn 1s against Shira than we can. Overall, it's a cog meme at this point. It's Sewage Waste. I don't think it's anywhere in competing with these decks. Maybe it could get to cog meme at some point, but, I don't know. Like, I don't feel it's that competitive enough. It's kind of sitting in Sewage Waste right now, honestly, for me. Orchist is... Pure Orchist is a cog meme. Probably the highest level of cog meme. Probably somewhere here. It's a cog meme at this point. Orchist is still, like I said, going turn 1. This is the strongest turn 1 you'll ever put out. One of the strongest. But going turn 2, man alive, you better draw what you need to draw. Because otherwise it's going to get really rough and really fast. And if your play is to activate Scrap Recycler and they activate the Omni Negate, well, you're not going to be a very happy man at that point. If your play is to activate Harp from the deck and you have like Apprentice plus a Harp and they negate your Harp, well, you better pray and hope. Or they could just wait and negate your Ding and you go shuffled into the deck and then your Ding cannot protect anymore. So it's not that great. So, cog meme. Alright, next. PK is another cog meme. Alright, this is not utter ass. It's more down here, but it is still a cog meme. And it still can end on a decent board, I guess, if you make Requiem plus a certain amount of back row. You're still probably cooking. And yeah, you have a decent turn 1. And there's ways to win, but like I said, going second, not the most consistent thing in the world. Ra. Ra is... it's a cog meme. Like, you can blow out a lot of decks going second. I know Swag's gonna kill me. But, like, it's a cog meme. It's not... It's probably out ahead of these decks. Ra is a cog meme. Going first is... Oh, my gosh. You better hope you get what you need. And going second is... Yeah. You're probably OTKing a lot of decks if you don't get Omni'd at the right time or whatnot, you know. It's a cog meme. It's not Sewage Waste. If I put it here, Swag will end me. And it's not Sewage Waste. Okay, we haven't gotten it. Yeah, but yeah. Okay. Red Eyes is Sewage Waste. I am sorry, all my Red Eyes fans. This is not a good deck. There's so many decks that does what this is. Like, if you want to play a going first deck that sets a ton of macro, just play Ultra Geist or play Live to win. Like, play any one of these decks that can do that at a much grander, much more consistent, better scale. Or even Orcus, like, go first and set back, bro. Pure Orcus. But, like, yeah, this is not it. Okay, it's not the meta calling that we needed, and Red Eyes honestly deserve a much more fair shake than what they've been getting. Yeah, so it's not it. It pains me, guys, when I have to put a deck in the sewage waste, but yeah, unfortunately, that's where it is right now. Rocket is a rogue deck. It is a rogue deck, probably mid-rogue. It's even dropping by the day. Look, I'm going to be real with you. Rocket is actually a decent deck, and it's gotten a slightly bit better because the Tachyons, shouldn't say dropping, but it's mid-rogue. That's where Rocket is. It's mid to upper rogue, because the thing is, like, going second into Shiranui is really, really tough. I'm not going to lie. Like, most of the things that Rocket has to go second into is generally not favored. That'd be Tenyi, Shira, Tachyon, I wouldn't quote as being favored. The problem with Rocket, too, and this is why I feel like Rocket's not that strong of a deck anymore, is because Rocket doesn't generally OTK you. And this is a format where you have to OTK your opponent. Like, the problem is that decks like Tachyon, decks like Shira, they have so much follow-up that if you don't kill them, you're probably dead in the follow-up. So, like, as much as I like Rocket, and I'd like to see it advance back up, it's just not there. I think we're at a stage where Rocket needs more support. Like, this deck needs support to compete with all the other decks in the current meta. I don't think that Rocket's at that point where it could start competing with Shira and Tachyon on a consistent level. Like, like, even into some of these tier 3 decks, it's like, this even further is the case for me putting it as a mid-rogue deck. It's just that, like, the turn 1 for Rocket is really good. Like, you have a really good turn 1 in Rocket. Is it super consistent? Well, it's super consistent then on some kind of board that's going to win you the game. And the deck still has a decent amount of grind. But the problem is once you start getting into these upper echelon decks, going second into them just invalidates that. Because, like, going second into Shira is going to be very rough. Because the minute they disrupt you, if they get rid of Boot Sector Launch, then you lose your grind game. And then it's kind of like, uh-oh, now you're starting to play this uphill battle against Shiranui. And it's still, like, in that matchup, it can be very annoying for Rocket to out the trap without having Furious Dragon. And then they start really pushing it out, grinding you, and you start needing your IDPs to win, and it starts getting really bad. So I think, like, overall, like, Rocket is a mid-rogue deck at this point. I just don't think, unless, like, Shira and Tachyon get more hits, then it kind of buffs back up. But, like, for now, it's just, like, once the power level of the meta starts really getting to that ceiling where they can't compete going second, that's where I feel like Rocket starts to take a tumble. Raid Raptor is, oh gosh, it is a cog meme. It's like in the Orcus category where this deck goes first, you probably win because you end on, like, Nightmare and a really, really good field turn 1. You could end on, like, Soul to Nightmare turn 1. You can even wreck, Odd Eyes Raging Dragon your opponent on turn 2 if you have the right hand for it. But, like, it's go first or bust. I'm not gonna lie to you. This deck is go first or bust. Otherwise, like, if you get disrupted once, yeah, kind of not looking too good for you. If you go second into, like, a live Twin or Shira, just pray. Okay, that's all I can tell you. Hope, because that's all you're gonna get. I don't even know if, like, even if you have that good of a turn 1, I don't even know, like, you're a cog move anymore. We might be approaching sewage waste here, guys. We might be approaching sewage waste because this deck, pretty much going second is pray. That's pretty much what you do. I mean, you can run Tex in the deck, but you have to, like, the problem is you might draw more engine than Tex, and then that's where it gets bad. And then even if, like, you disrupt your opponent once, it's like, I don't know. Like, you gotta hope with this deck. With this deck, like, yeah, I don't know. It's got a sewage waste to me. Like, top sewage waste, but not bottom sewage waste, but, you know. Alright. Salad is a cog meme. Yes, it's not even rogue because like the problem is like going second into like the problem is Shira having the trap. If they get Samsara, you like Silent's goal is to OT counter too. Whether you're playing the Burning Raw variant or that, like you actually have a decent turn one against Shira. Like you could Dweller and then like end on some amount of like back row. That's not if you're playing 3 effects can run Dweller, but it's like not as consistent. Going Burning Roar can make Dweller a lot more consistent, so leading to a better turn one. The problem with Salad, and it is a dang problem, they have to OTK the turn they are playing, because otherwise their turns after that they're probably dead on the follow-up. And the problem is if Shira resolves Samsara once, you probably more in a position to lose the duel than you are to win the duel. And that's probably the problem. And then going second at a Tachyon, if you have to get Omni negated at some point, it's kind of bad. I think I put it ahead of everything else in the Cog meme. So I think, like I said, it's highest level Cog meme, almost in the Rogue, but not quite there. And that's where I kind of put it at this current juncture. But yeah, can do well, but it's still got issues. All right, next is Stardust, and again, we've hit Sewage Waste. Yes. Maybe with Mech Knights, it might crawl to bottom in Cog meme. It might crawl. I want to see what they do with the Mech Knights coming back with Blue Sky, but like, yeah, but I don't know. Like, yeah, again, and you know, I can't argue that Ray Raptor is here and then this doesn't appear here, but like, you know, sometimes it's a Hail Mary going second to play this deck, and it can get pretty ugly at times. So right now, until the mechs get off, it stays in the Sewage Waste, guys. I'm sorry. All right, Speedroids are a rogue deck. They are another mid-rogue deck. I think they're a bit higher than Rocket, to be honest with you. As this deck does run like Book, Chalices, and stuff, and they generally always open up tech that will allow them playing going second. Again, I think the Omnigate does pose them issues, and I think Shiranui can be somewhat of a pest for them to deal with, and IDP as well. So, like, IDP, the thing is, like, if you have, you know, Live Twin running around and they're playing IDP, and it gets a little bit testy, I think, for Speedroid. Like I said, if they're going second, they could go second, and going first, they'd still have a really solid turn one. So, like I said, it's probably fits in here. You know, that's probably where it fits in. And I think it's fine as a mid to upper echelon rogue deck. Okay. I think I would actually even switch this. Okay. Alright, next is, I already did S-Force. Did we? No, we didn't do S-Force. Okay. S-Force is a rogue deck, and it's probably in the same spot Rocket is at this point. I would even jump BA ahead of this, honestly. Rocket right now, I mean, S-Force right now just isn't it. Going second, it's rough. If you get Omni negated, it's going to be really rough. I don't think S-Force really has a favor going second into any of these matchups. Like, in the previous meta, it goes second a lot better. But now, it really does not. That's the problem. Like, if you get Omni'd and Chio's the only play you have, well, then hell, holy hell, you better pray. And their turn 3, you know, Tachyon will start trying to force out the back row, and it could get really ugly really fast. I even had a duel where I went up against S-Force, and they opened up every limit 3, and I still beat them going first with Shira, because the limit 3s weren't enough, even for them to have 3 limit 3s. I think, like, in the right hands, S-Force jumps up a little bit, but right now, it is not very good. It doesn't really have any favorable matchups, and overall, it just feels lacking to me. Right now, kind of in the rogue category. Like, if this deck goes first, can it win? Yes, of course. Of course it can. But going second, it's like, you know, oh gosh, it's almost, it's iffy at best. So, yeah. Because of that, it sits about here. Alright, our Sardic is, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of looking sewage wasty at this point, kids. All right, the best decks in the meta are not decks with out levels. Okay, I mean, I guess Tachyon isn't, but you know, maybe if you go first against Tachyon, you could win going second. I don't know. I know, don't feel too good to me, buddy. But you know, honestly, you know, it's almost sewage wasty right now. It's unreliable. You need to draw the draw 7 to win, I think. And other than that, it's like, you know, it'd be at best. You know, its Shira matchup is kind of, you know, pray and hope. Its Tenyi matchup might also be pray and hope, because I think Tenyi just steamrolled us going second. But, and then Blue Eyes could probably wreck this deck too, because of all the popping that it does. And the fact that it really doesn't care about you negating any exceeds or whatever not. So, yeah. Because of that, yeah, probably in the sewage waste department, kiddies. Maybe he gets up the cog meme. Maybe, but like right now it's kind of looking sewage wasty. Alright. Ubel is maybe the highest in the cog meme, maybe low end rogue. Yeah, probably low end rogue. Right now it's actually I mean, it can beat Tachyon. Like, you have Super Poly, you have ways to win. If you go second against Shira, you kind of need Super Poly to win. Because the minute they start popping everything, it can get bad. And then Samsara kind of FTKs you belt without a way to remove it. Because you kind of take away the whole win con. But, yeah, it's still decent enough to probably be bottom end rogue. Toon is sewage waste. Yes. Unfortunately, it is what it is. The very fact if you go against Shiranui and they just search Samsara, you probably lose. Even if you crow them, even if you manage to crow them, you activate Samsara and then you literally cannot attack them. It gets really bad. If they activate Samsara, you probably already lost the duel because Toon don't really have a lot of way to remove macro other than like the Harpy Lady. So yeah, not the best strategy in the meta, and going second, you probably died on one Omni Negate, so yeah, sewage waste seems about right for Toons, unfortunately. Alright, next is Trickstar, and Trickstar is actually, well, it's better now, but, maybe with all like the hand trap control could actually fit back in the rogue category. Because I do believe it actually has a decent shot at going first or second. Yeah, Trickstar is actually a decent deck. It might actually even be higher than Rocket at this point, to be honest with you. Although I think S-Force triumphs both of these decks. But, no, actually no. I think that, overall, like, I think Trickstar is just like, could draw into a bunch of air traps that might win them the game. Like, the problem is, like, it's unreliable going turn 1. It's got kind of all these 3 decks that clump together, but going second, you do have some kind of a game plan to beat Shiranui and Live Twin. Tachyon might be dicey. I don't know. But, you know, because of the Omni Gate and everything, but overall, it's still good enough to be in the rogue. They can also play around Darkhold, both of these decks, which is kind of bad for you, but, you know, once they start doing so. But, yeah, overall, yeah, that's about right. Sue's ships, I already covered. Okay. Shadol. Probably somewhere in here. Probably Head of Ancient Warriors, yeah. Probably behind Rocket. Yeah, I would say right over here. Solid rogue. It bricks a lot. It can really go second if it has the right hand for it. It can compete if it, like I said, if it goes second, you could, like, going first, you could shut down Shira, win the, but you gotta hope they don't have an out for like a book or something like that, or anything that would deal with it. But overall, like, the thing is, like, a lot, Gold Sark doesn't deal with it. Book is really the only thing that does. Or, like, maybe they run into it with Samurai, but then you might be able to win the crackback. Overall, like, it's a decent deck. I think Shadol is bricky. That's the problem. That's why it kind of sits at the bottom of the rogue. Otherwise, it could easily jump up further, but yeah, I think that's kind of where it lies right now. Okay, and that covers everything. Yeah, we've covered all these decks. These are just repeats. Alright, yeah. So this is the tier list right now. I think overall, this is where we sit in the meta. I think that, you know, we're in a place where I think that some of the other, you see where all these tier 3 decks are kind of jumping up now. I think that we're starting to get a little bit more competitiveness in the meta. Earth Machine's kind of a difficult one. Like I said, it's only geared because of its it's awkward. It's awkward against Shira. I feel like it's awkward against Shira. That's the kind of the issue. Otherwise, this would shoot up into tier 3. Like, if Shira gets some kind of a hit, this thing would definitely, like, bump up here. But overall, like, I think this is where we kind of sit in the meta. Let me know your opinions. Let me know things you would change. Let me know what you like. Also, if you want to see me finish my cog with Shira, that's going to be tonight. About 7:30, 7:45. So if you want to make sure you are there, do that. We might also do a little bit of Rush Duel as well. Once we get Maximum Summoning, but we'll see. Maybe that's not tonight. Maybe that'll be a different day. Maybe we'll do that on the 29th. Yeah. Appreciate it. If you enjoyed the stream, like, comment, sub. And until next time, it's your boy, Sean Matrai, signing out. Bye, YouTube.